Here we go. It's time to get our first case done. We're back in the virtual classroom for Comp 3077 online at the Kinlan School of Business at Fanshawe College. I am the voice in the videos, your online virtual professor, Mike, not necessarily your professor for this course, who you can contact in FOL and who will be meeting you for an hour each week just to cover the rough spots. But these videos will come through every week to show the entire completion of the case and to show you how to get 100%. Now, this one's going to be a little bit different because it is our first case and it's the first week, so we still have to do a basic introduction to Excel. I know a lot of you have already used Excel. The number of students we have in class now, when I survey the students at the beginning of the course who haven't used Excel, has shrunk to almost nothing at this point. But even people that haven't used Excel have usually used Google Sheets or something like that. But even if you've never used it, that's what week one's all about. We're going to start you at the most basic level, and we're first going to check on your readiness to see if you're prepared to work in the platform and save files and know where they saved and what they're named, and just go through the basic workspace a little bit to know what things are called. Just spend the first 15 minutes here just doing that, and then we'll get into the case. So if you know you're past that point, you've already taken the FOL quiz, you can move ahead. I'm going to chapter these videos as I'm posting them, so you can move ahead to the portion of the video that's time-stamped for the beginning of the case. But I would highly recommend that everyone in the course, if you're willing to sit through it, just go through this quick review of basic Excel, and then I'll send you into the FOL quiz to complete the FOL quiz, and then from there, you can start case one. And the rest of the videos after this week will just be the delivery of the case and the steps, and that's it. Of course, as soon as we're done with the FOL quiz, I don't need to stop. You can just pause the video there and take the quiz, and then we can get into case one. So case one deals with some basics. So each time you start a case, the one thing I will recommend is as you're getting ready to go for that week, and we're going to pop out of here and get into FOL, I would go to the weekly module just to see what we're covering. You may have done some of this stuff before. Some of it may be new. Some of it may be review. But this module details file will always go through everything that's being covered that week. I like to start mine with a nice quote about Excel. There's a lot of good ones out there. And there'll be a short description of it. So this is the one thing in the intro video we didn't get to the modules, because I'll always open them up at the beginning of each case video. And it talks about the course learning outcomes that are covered, and then there'll be module learning outcomes, which are the specific things we're doing in each module. So one of the things was to get all set up in MindTap, which we've already done. Okay, and now we're gonna work a little bit on this for a minute, and then we're gonna start the case. And there will be some additional information. I did want to talk about MOS before we started doing our readiness stuff. I should have had that in the PowerPoint slides, but we're covering it now anyway. MOS stands for Microsoft Office Specialist, and this is what the vast majority of these Microsoft application textbooks, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, this is what they're designed around. And Microsoft then creates the content for and allows the publishers and different testing centers to administer such tests. You're not going to be certified as a result of taking this course. We don't combine the two things in the full-time program here at Fanshawe, but it would be easy to find a testing center, and probably even easier to be certified after taking a course at this level. You'll know how to get a pretty good mark on an MOS test for Excel once you're done with the course. So that link will take you to a website that will help you find a testing center if you choose to do that when you're done with the course. It's a nice resume builder. Otherwise, you can put MOS trained. You would have no issue putting that on your resume. And there's always links to the virtual classroom where these videos are going. A little bit of extra information in week one, because it is week one. And I mentioned that you're going to want to change your language settings. Most of you who have bought computers in Canada will receive a machine that has either Windows or the Mac OS set to English Canada. So English Canada. Generally speaking, with institutional software and the way we conduct business in North America, it's best to be on English United States And then you don't have any issues with date formats and number formatting and stuff. And I'll talk about that as we get to those steps in the case. I'll remind you, hey, go get your language settings checked and make sure you're on English US. It's pretty easy to do. And there's a short description of it right there. And then there'll always be a list of everything we're covering, including the basic Excel tools and concepts we're covering in the case. So that'll be covered today. So I spent a little bit of extra time here on the module content because it is week 1 and we're learning about the course and how everything's set up. You'll see reminders under graded assessment tasks. Every week we have a quiz and a case. And there is an opportunity for 1% extra credit. As soon as you buy your MindTap key code from the bookstore, you will take a picture of the receipt, take a screen snip, show us an email, PDF, something. Just show us some kind of proof of purchase. And you can put that in the FOL submissions box. No, that's the purchase link for the bookstore. Right here. So there's always links to everything in FOL too. It'll always open up as a new window and you're linked to everything throughout the course. So these new courses we've set up that are compliant with the AODA, so the Accessibilities of Ontario and Disabilities Act. So it's making sure that the courses are organized in a way that every level of learner, everywhere they're at, they can find everything and it's easy to get to. And so it's all been redone this year, actually, just as I'm recording these videos near the end of 2025. So this takes me to my version of that with a bunch of students' names you don't need to be seen there. You would see the submission box right here, and you just submit that for extra credit. So that's one of only 3 items that you do on FOL this semester. The other one is your custom project in week 13 that's worth 11%. And the other one is the quiz on FOL, which is right here, that I'm about to lead you into. So in addition to all that type of stuff being in the content module, which is usually all you see each week under modules, is you'll see, let's go to module 3, for example. You'll see the details module and then the checklist to make sure you know where you're at on your weekly work. Modules 2 through the rest of them are pretty much like that. But module 1 has a little bit of extra stuff because there's an intro checklist to make sure you're all comfortable with the course and you've gone through the course information module stuff like we did in the first video. And there's also this extra file here. So as we're opening up this file, we're also going to open Excel. So if you've never used Excel, this will be the first time you've done this. I'm still in Windows 10, not 11. So 11 has the search box in the center. It's quite similar. I'm actually still, it's not like I don't want to switch and I'm one of those guys, I just haven't gotten around to it. But everything else you see will be the same. It's just you're going to go down in the middle and search for Excel. So unlike the way it used to be with Windows when you used to have to kind of go through the application list, it's now more like a Mac has been for a long time where you just search for what you want to open. What happened there? Come on. So in lieu of having a file that is an Excel file, and you can just double click on the file in the folder to open it, I'm just going to open Excel directly from the application list. You can also put a shortcut on your desktop. You're going to notice as I record these videos, I will have portions of videos where I go back and sort of add some annotations and things to remind people about, and I maybe would correct things. I go out of my way not to swear in my videos if I can help it. But I don't script these. I do these as if I'm teaching a class. And the first thing we do when I'm teaching my week 1 class is we open up Excel. Before we start the case, before we log back into MindTap, we're just going to open up Excel and talk about how it works here. Now, I just chose to open up a blank workbook. Okay, and before we even start working in Excel and understanding that this is a spreadsheet-based program with worksheets, multiple worksheets that you can have up to 250, some of them, 252, I believe, that would comprise an Excel file, which we call a workbook. As you're opening Excel, so I'm going to close this file. Actually, I don't need to close the file. I can go right back to here. So as you go in to open the file, there is a lot of tutorials and extra help in here, even without YouTube and even without a course like this. I'm not trying to diminish the value of this course because I'm going to make this very easy for you, as will your online professors, and we're going to make sure you all have the opportunity to earn an A or an A+ in this course. I mean, we give you the answers to 44% of the work in this course. You're almost passing just by following along with the videos and the SAM training that gives you the answers to the quizzes. The videos will show you every step in every case, and submitted show you that you can get 100% with doing exactly what we do in the videos. And the quizzes, the answers are all in the training. If you can't get at least a 70 on the quiz, which is all you need to pass, they're in the training. We don't start the SAM quizzes until week 2. This week we do an FOL quiz, which I've combined into this case video, and we do it at the beginning here. So one of the things we do is just open up the workspace and check it out. But I wanted to point out all these videos and the tutorials from their help menu that are there, in addition to the stuff you can find on YouTube if you need extra help. And let's say you wanted to create, for example, a specific type of file, like you wanted to do like a personal budget. Okay. I'm going to see what comes up when I search for that. Oh, there's like 4 really good options here. That's pretty cool. Excuse me. Let's say you run like a landscaping business. A lot of my students seem to be doing that in the summertime. There's like all sorts of options for writing up receipts. Like this is where, I mean, AI is great, but AI I think is for things where we don't have the answers, where we need to dig a lot deeper for stuff. If you're just wanting simple things like this, Microsoft Office, I mean, it's all there. You don't have to go paying for extra stuff. Your students at Fanshawe, you get the whole Office suite for free. So I'm just pointing out at the beginning when we're starting Excel that all these things are available. Like if you don't want to have to go through all the formatting and you want something more like the SAM cases we get where stuff is already set up for you and just plug the numbers in, it's there. Like this is all, like the whole background's changed. It's got all the lines where you want them. I mean, it's very useful stuff that it's there at the, and we do have a case where we learn how to save as a template and open up templates. But right now we're just starting with the very basics, and we're going to start by just opening up a basic Excel file. Just open, there's the name, save, undo, redo. So all these little things you're going to start to have to learn where they go. I'm going to give you like the 5-minute crash course, and then we're going to learn better by just doing the case. So the beginning of Excel, I always try and show people that if you've never used a spreadsheet program like this, you have to look at each cell almost as if it's a page in a Word document. So this cell, and that's what all these boxes are, they're all identified by columns and rows. It's almost like finding something on a map when they give you like that legend where you go from the left to the right, and you have to remember columns always go up and down and rows always go from side to side. If this review seems helpful for you and you want to watch it again, you can always pause me, slow me down, go back. If this is like way back from when you already learned Excel in high school and you already know all this stuff, you can kind of zip right to the case by using the chapters, because this is going to be a bit of a longer video only because we're doing both in one video. So moving on, continuing on with the review here. So if I were to just decide to type my name in a cell, so which is like, and then I hit enter, it doesn't enter down another line. It moves me into the next cell. So that's the big difference here, is that you're not just working within the space of a paragraph and then entering and starting a new paragraph. In fact, you could write an entire paragraph right here if you wanted to. I'm just backspacing and fixing that, and I'm just typing out. And then as soon as I hit enter, or if it's just text, you can just click down in the next cell. I want to encourage you to hit enter, because as soon as you start making formulas and things that are a bit more complicated, if you're in the middle of a formula or a function inside of a cell and you don't hit enter, instead you click to another cell, it might put that into the formula instead of completing it for you. So it's always best to hit enter when you're in a cell and you know you've put in there what you need in there. It's one of my little rules in there. Always hit enter. Always hit enter. Always be saving. All that kind of stuff, which is actually the final slide in this week 1 video. So as I've input this into the cell, you probably noticed it's also up here. So Excel has this really unique space in the work area called the formula bar. And if you sit over a lot of these options, as you're, here, let me get out of there. Sit over it. It'll tell you what it is. That's the formula bar. What's this thing over here that actually gives me the cell identification? That's the name box. And if you sit over it, it'll tell you that's the name box. So the FOL quiz, one of the things it does is quizzes you on what all these items are in the workspace. Like this is a worksheet tab. Used to start with 3. I think we're going back 5 years now. was the last time before they changed that. But it's kind of been deemed that most Excel files, most people usually only work with the first sheet. So now with you working with these SAM cases in MindTap, you're going to be working with multiple sheets on pretty much every case. But the standard blank file starts with one sheet, and you can add another sheet simply by clicking a button. You can rename sheets by right-clicking and renaming. There's so many easy things you can do by right-clicking. You can also change the tab color, which is kind of cool. I think that's on the quiz next week. Like if I wanted that to be yellow or something, and I wanted this to be a different name, like this was my budget sheet or something, and this was my intro sheet. Right-click, rename, intro. Just getting to things by right-clicking. So I'm back on the first sheet again. You can see I typed some words in there. I could keep going on, and it would just spill through the cell and keep going down there unless I finally decided to wrap text, which is there. That's the wrap text button. Depending on the width of your menu. So if I shrink this, for example, I can see the format cell menu, which we're going to use in the week 1 case. When I was in the lab teaching it, it looked more like this. I had to go into here to find it. So this is another thing I want to show you when I'm introducing you to the workspace. The menu might not always look identical to my menu, and I want you to be aware of that before we start our first case here. If you see me in my menu and you see something that you can't see on your menu, always look down here in the bottom, and it'll tell you what the name of the primary menu will be if you have lower resolution and it's been consolidated into that primary menu. Because there's the format. Everything's there. I'm in Office 365. You're a Fanshawe student. You should be in Office 365 and using Excel 365. We should, and depending on our settings, you might have chosen the dark look versus the light look, but it should look very similar. If you're missing things, it's maybe because you're on an iPad or a Chromebook. You can't have the full version of MS Office in this context. I had a student in our first class today trying to complete it on an iPad, and she couldn't find flash fill. So these are things you need to remember before you start your first case. You need to be on your PC or your Mac, not on a handheld, not on a tablet, and you need to have the full version of Office installed, as we covered in the first video. We did talk about that. So back to what I'm doing here. We can have multiple sheets. We have these cells. They're identified by column, letters, and row numbers. So a column header is a letter. A row header is a number. And we can input information into the cell. If I want to go into the next cell, I can click down here, and I can also type it into the formula bar. And the formula bar, if you're doing a function or a formula, will show you the calculation here versus the answer here. It's almost like when you were in elementary school and the teacher would always say, show your work in math class. The formula bar shows your work. So Mike Sloan is also, man, I typo my last name a lot, in this cell. Okay, so it's easy enough to input text. If you want to input numbers, like 25, for example, that's a number. It's not the same as text. It immediately recognizes it at a number, as a number. I'm down here in A5. I put in, so I can't just add on words and it'll space it out like that. Now it still says general there, but this is a number. It knows it's a number. Put it on the right. We'll get into more formats in week 2. But I'm just typing that stuff in. And what else might I want to show you? So undo and redo and save are in the same place. Yep, like I said, it wants me to upgrade to Windows 11. We're still good for Windows 10 for right now. If you see this in Word, it's the same stuff. And if you're logged in to your MS Office, it's auto-saving, so everything's in there. But these are buttons to be aware of. This is the quick access toolbar. We can customize the toolbar, customize quick access button, and you can add things to have up here as well that you might, maybe you want spell check up there because you use it really often. I actually wouldn't mind having spell check up there. That's a good idea. I always forget to spell check in Excel, and it's definitely worth doing. When you spell things incorrectly in Excel, so let's just make up a word. It doesn't red underline them like it does in Word for you, but if I was to go to spell check, it would say, hey, what the heck is this? This isn't in the dictionary. So it still works the same way. So a lot of the tools are the same. Like when you go to page layout, for example, a lot of the stuff here looks the same as what you're comfortable with in Word, right? Like orientation, which we do in the week 1 case, it's the same. So The main difference here is you need to understand that everything is divided into these cells. And yes, it doesn't look that way when you start typing because it spills over on the end. As soon as I put something in B2 or B1, sorry, like Sloan, oh my gosh, I can't, is now in B2. It goes over top of what's in B1, which means you might want to start adjusting the column. And if you sit over the division between the two columns, you can click and drag it with your mouse and it'll tell you exactly how wide it is. You can double click it and it will auto fit. That's in the first case. Same thing with the rows. And you use the bottom line of the row and auto fit and drag out. So a lot of it is very user friendly. And in terms of the crash course, we're just giving you in Excel right now at the beginning of this video before the week 1 case. It's just to get you comfortable in the workspace. And one of the big things we want you to know is what, and I keep saying we, like all the professors, because we all share these videos. I just happen to be the lucky guy that gets to be the voice in the videos. So when we say, now go into the formula bar and paste this in the formula bar because you won't carry the formatting over, or let's check out the name box and see if we can do this in the name box, you'll know what this stuff actually is. You can also search for things if you can't find it, like we have a step using flash fill in the first case. And mine's not coming up actually. I'm gonna have to turn that on. Flash fill. And that'll come up in the search box. It's also underneath your autofill. So that's our crash course in Excel. And where you're gonna go from here, what else did I want to show you? The name box. I did want to show you something cool about the name box. So the name box will take you to whatever cell you want to go to. But let's say you wanted to highlight like different sections of a worksheet together, which you can also do with the control key. That's how I just did that. I highlighted this section and then I highlighted that section. Oh, and the mouse behaviors with the cell. That was what I wanted to show you before we got into the first case as well. So when I click in a cell and then I click my mouse down and I go over and unclick, it's the same as if I was highlighting like a section of text in Word. It highlights it. If I'm in a cell and I click on the border of it and pull it over, it moves it into the other cell. And if I'm in a cell, the same one for example, and I click not on the border, not inside the cell, but on that little tiny cube, which even if I zoom in, the cube is still the same size. I just did that by scrolling my mouse. You can also use the zoom setting down here. That's the same as Word. So a lot of this stuff you should be comfortable with. Anyway, if I grab that handle, that's the same as copying. Okay, it's called the fill handle. And you'll see in case 1 when we do it, it's pretty cool. When you're copying, you can actually copy and set it up so that you copy in a formula when you use autofill and it changes the cell references automatically. So it goes into the next row, into the next column. You don't have to set it up that way. Excel just knows to do that. But you can also copy. So lots of different ways to do this. If you just Control C, which is copy, the shortcut for it, and Control V, it'll copy the same thing in there too. So a lot of the stuff in here is the same, but it's good to know the workspace. It's good to understand everything's broken up in tabs like it is in the other Microsoft apps you're used to using. These are your main tab headers, and then under there is all your menu stuff and the ribbon. This sheet is called a worksheet. Okay, not a spreadsheet. It's actually called a worksheet, and a file that is a collection of Excel worksheets is a workbook. So lots of stuff like that. So let's jump in to what quiz 1 is going to look like then. I'm going to go over to FOL. Okay, so I'm back on FOL now, and I'm going to check out this file, the week 1 readiness file. And you can go into this before you open Excel for the first time or after. We've had a nice little crash course on Excel that was about 15 minutes. And now I'd like you guys to pause the video and give this a quick read. This is fundamentally just asking you, hey, you know how amazing smartphones are, but have you forgotten how to use a computer? Like when you save a file, do you know where it goes? And generally speaking, if you download a file from the internet using a web browser, if you haven't changed the settings in your browser, it's going to go to what folder? It's going to go to downloads. And you should be able to then go right to downloads and find that file and hopefully not have a million things in your downloads folder and easily pull that file up so you can rename the working file and then submit it again in SAM right after. So we're going to do all that at the beginning of our first case. I just want to make sure that you know how to manage files on a computer. I know, these smartphones, here's mine right here. Like, this thing has wrecked us in terms of being good file managers. It's destroyed us, but we still have to have those skills. That's stuff we learned back in elementary school when they told us how a filing system works on a computer, and it's kind of like a filing cabinet. You can have this file folder inside of this file folder, and it's all filed that way. You can see I highlighted this little section here. Like if you're working in the finance business, for example, like at a bank at BMO or RBC or something, those guys don't even like to upgrade their software. The whole focus is on where your files are saved and privacy, and is it secure? Is it in the right location? File management is a huge deal. So if you're a little rusty on this, just make sure you really follow along at the beginning of each case when we're downloading these files and placing them in a specific area. So as long as you're comfortable with all this and you're not working on a tablet or handheld style device, you're on a computer, we are ready to get into Excel 365. So we've gone over the basics of the workspace. We've talked about all that stuff. And then we have this readiness file. So the very first question on the quiz, and there are only 2, is what are all these things in the workspace? So in the context of this video right now, I'll give you the answers. Like this big square here, as I ended the discussion with in Excel, is the worksheet. It's a worksheet. It's not a spreadsheet. They call it a worksheet. That's the new, that's the sheet tab. That's a new sheet tab. That's a row header. That's a column header. So 11 and 9. That's the formula bar. That's the name box. That's a cell. Obviously, that's what we were talking about the whole beginning there. Save, undo, redo. Number 7, I got to zoom in on that a little bit. That's the file name right there. Oh, yeah. Number 7's that drop down. I showed you that. That's the customized quick access toolbar. Remember, I added spell check to my toolbar. Those are ribbon tabs, and that's the help menu. So you can get that question right. I'm sure you'll get all those answers right. And then we also get into keyboard shortcuts. I haven't even brought that up yet, but I did use some in my demonstration there in the intro to Excel. Keyboard shortcuts are a big deal. And the reason for that is because they save time, they're efficient, and they work across multiple applications. So I'm just going to quiz you on some really basic ones, like Control S, for example. That's obviously save, and that's one of my big rules. You should always be saving, and before you submit your file, you should always be closing. That's on that final slide we're going to go back and review before we end the week 1 case lecture. But what I'd like you to do now is using these resources. This is obviously open resource. You can go to FOL quizzes. You can have 2 windows open, so you can kind of have a look at this. You can have Excel open, and you can actually hover over things in Excel. Like if you hover over that, it tells you it's the formula bar, for example. And some of these other ones are really obvious. And you're going to get that matching question done. And then the keyboard shortcuts, you can just look up while you're taking the quiz. You can Google it. You can open up that Wikipedia page, and you're going to complete the quiz. It should take you about 5 minutes. So it's under Evaluations, Quizzes. And I'm going to ask you to pause the video now and complete quiz 1. It's worth 1%. Again, this is the only quiz you'll take on FOL. All the rest of the quizzes starting next week will be in SAM, and there'll be a separate video just to show you how to use the SAM quizzing environment via MindTap. So go ahead and pause the video and get that quiz done. Just before I leave you here to do the quiz, I'll give you a quick preview of it so we can preview as professors and show the students what it'll look like for them. So you go in here, you go to start the quiz. It'll tell you this. You got 15 minutes to get it done. That's lots of time. Click start. And the questions will be one on top of the other. It might be laid out a little differently if you're doing it on a handheld device. But this first question is that picture of the workspace, the exact picture we had in the Getting Started section. And if you scroll down a bit, what you're doing is, so the new sheet button, I'll give you that one for example. I can see there, that's where the sheet button is, and then the new sheet button would be number 13. So you have to find where it says new sheet button, which happens to be on top, which is down here, number item 13, and you match it up. Okay, but everybody's is going to be in a different order. So you may not have that on top. It might be down here somewhere, and you would have to match that up with 13. So you just got to match all 15 items up, sorry. And then you're done with question 1. And then question 2 is just quizzing you to match up 5 keyboard shortcuts, which I don't need to show you in the context of the video. And you've got 15 minutes. That's the quiz. That's the whole thing. And then we'll get into case 1. So we are now on to the completion of our first case. Cases are worth 3%. Quizzes are worth 1, as we went over in your introduction video. I would always recommend going in and just taking a quick look at the module just to see what we're covering that week. It just gives you like a nice sort of navigation feeling of the content. So that way when we get to the tests in week 6 and 14, you'll have a bit of a memory of when we did what. So this is, and there's a list of everything that's covered on each case. So this is what we're doing here, starting on item number 5, because the rest of it was done before. Hopefully you guys did well on your quiz. It would have been graded automatically. You don't have to wait for grades long in this course. You're going to see soon that this is what we're going to cover in the case. It'll be graded right away. So when we're doing a case, you can go to the module in FOL to see what we're covering, and then you go to account.cengage.com. You log into your account. This is the same account I created in the other video where we set up MindTap. And you'll go in and go right to your MindTap platform. And if you haven't paid for the key code yet, that's fine. It'll tell you pay later. You'll have that option. So I'm going to open MindTap. And I'm going to continue with temporary access. You are not forced to pay right now. There is no reason you can't just work without having to pay for the first 2 weeks. So let's go. And we are going to do the week 1 case. So everything you see in the course when you get into the course will be in sequential order as it is to be completed throughout the semester. And as you submit it, you will get marked immediately. And once you get marked, you'll be able to correct your mistakes. So most students do end up doing quite well on these cases, considering we give you the answers to earn 100%. So what I'm going to do now is what the rest of the videos will be like. We won't have that intro part. We will literally just at the beginning of the video, we come in, we start, we do the case. We're doing the week 1 case. You get into the case, it'll give you a little information on what's going on with the case. I always have a blurb there. You know, you can download the file. You get 2 attempts. So it talks about it right here. You can pause the video, give that a quick read. And there's also information on how to complete this stuff right here, but I'm going to show you that in the context of the video. Just note that you get 2 submissions. So given that it's graded immediately at the end and tells you what you got wrong, let's say you submitted and you got an 88. Why would you not try and get 100? Like, come on. You might as well get the better mark. So let's get started with the week 1 case, and it will cover what we cover in the week 1 case. So we don't require you guys to read the book, even though in the context of your Cengage login, when you bought the MindTap access, it came with this book. So you can go into the ebook and view the chapters. But as professors, we've also provided you with the summary slides from each of the chapters where a case is covered, which I mentioned in the other video too, because these don't come with your book. These are only if the professors choose to give them to you. And I don't have them out in the module. So when you go to content and you go to modules, you'll see, come on FOL. You will see if I go to look at all the modules, each of them just has the content item and the checklist after week 1 where we have a little extra stuff. But if you go into the module, let's go to like week 4, for example, they all have it. Whatever case we're doing that week and whatever concepts are covered in there, we are providing you, we being all the profs, with the chapter slides from the chapter where that case came from in your book. So it's not like the book is a total wash. I mean, you can always go back and look at it, you know, just to make reference to things to see what else is covered in the chapter. But we are teaching you what's from the book by instructing you on every step of every case and showing you how to do them. But these are really nice to have just as summary. So each link takes you to the same file. It's the slide deck for that chapter. Now, as a professor of this course and a professor who's taught other courses dealing with coding and computer applications and stuff like that, I would never teach a course like that from PowerPoint slides, but I've used slides in the past, even for stuff that I was learning, just to kind of review what we covered, right? So those will always be there every week as well. So I just want you to be aware that there's a lot of information in addition to what we teach you in the cases, but the cases are your chance to demonstrate that you've learned the knowledge, you've learned the skills, and you're working on them. And the best way to do it is to do it. So that's what we do is the case. So once you get to this screen from where you started, remember when you were back here, oh no, that's just collapsing. By the way, if you have a smaller resolution, it might look more like this. It might have you more set up with, like, you download the files in the top, then you scroll down, you submit here. It depends on what your resolution's at. My screen has pretty high resolution, so mine looks more like this. If it looks a little different, it's still the same thing. Just be aware of that. So we will encounter cases later in the course that have more than one file, but this case just has the one file that you submit and the instructions. So you're always going to have two, the instructions and the working file. You can either choose to download all, which may trigger a pop-up blocker depending on the browser you're in. In Chrome, it'll usually ask you, it'll say, hey, do you really want to do this? And I'll say allow, yeah, I do. And it'll put them somewhere. Sometimes it'll do it without even asking you. Now, I have my browser set to ask me where I want it to go every time. And I'm going to deliberately put it in downloads, because if you haven't changed the settings in your browser, that's where it will go every time. 99% of you watching this video, if you just clicked on that, the files are now in downloads. So here's a tip. Don't download them 5 more times because you don't know where they are. Go to your downloads folder on your Mac or PC and see if they're in there. They very likely will be. So I'm going to put them into downloads. And now that download all may not have worked for me because I have it set. Yeah, see? And then it pulled the second file. So it didn't download them simultaneously. Then it automatically pulled up the second window to save, the second save window. So it just saved them one after the other. If I never changed my settings and it was set for them to just go automatically to downloads, it would have just saved them for me just without me doing anything. So then you have these two files there. So tip number one, related to saving files, you're going to get lots of tips in this course. This is just one specific to saving files. Stop downloading everything multiple times. Students do it all the time. It's getting better each semester. I think we're getting a little bit better at using computers again. Smartphones haven't wrecked us for life, apparently, but just download the files one time, and you can open up the instructions, and the instructions right from the get-go will tell you what to do with the working file. So this is the file you're going to turn in. So you always get the instructions in the working file. Later in the course, we will have SAM cases that give you a little bit more. I didn't even really address the fact that we left MindTap and went into this different environment. So MindTap has a bunch of tools with it, where if we leave SAM for a second, don't worry that you're leaving SAM and then going back in again. The file you just downloaded is the file it expects to get. In fact, while I'm talking about that, since this is our first SAM case, I want to remind you, as we went over in the course introduction, you cannot submit another student's file. You can't cut and paste from a student's file. It will know. I don't know how it always knows, but it does. SAM always knows. So SAM is just one of the several tools that's linked into MindTap. So SAM, as a separate platform, works within MindTap. So if we go back to SAM, and we can open it up separately without clicking on an item, okay, it will show us what we've done here, and we can view all our grade reports at any time, which is kind of cool. But I just recommend to students just to, wow, come on, Google. Where would you like to? My phone wants me to, I mentioned Google or something. I don't know what happened there. Yeah, so I'm going to go back to the week 1 case. We're going to pick up right where we left off. I'm going to close that window for Sam there. So we're in SAM, we're doing this work in SAM, and then the marks will all be recorded in MindTap, but in the SAM gradebook. It's kind of cool, and you get graded immediately, and then your professors transfer them over to FOL. Not like the second it's done. It's usually at the end of each week or the end of every couple weeks, but as long as you submit your case on time, the grade will count in FOL. Even if you don't submit it on time, we're not going to take it away from you, unless your professor has some custom scheduling thing they're doing. Most professors will always leave them open, so you can complete them at any time. But if you want credit, you have to make sure you get it done by the deadline. And of course, if you're in FOL, your deadlines should all be in the calendar there, starting right on day 1. And if you look at my course here, I have that, like, all the deadlines all the way through December are there. This is a fall semester section. Okay, so we've got these two downloaded and we've opened up the instructions. You'll always want to click Enable Editing. If you're downloading this, especially if on a campus computer, that's going to be automatic. You may not all have to do that, but most of you will, because you will be cutting and pasting from this if you're going to follow my instructions. And this may seem long, but it's not a long case. And we're going to get the whole thing done, every single step in the video, showing you how to get 100. Then if you don't, you can resubmit. I'm going to show you that too. First thing it says to do is take that file name for the working file and edit it by changing the 1 to a 2. That's it, okay? You don't retype the XLSX. You don't add anything in there. If you've downloaded the file more than once, for example, I'll show you what happens. I'm going to download the file again, and I'm going to put it right into downloads where the other one is. And just, it already knows when it goes to save it there in the last place it's saved, there's another one there. So it gives it a different name. Now, students who basically are terrible file managers will do this like 6 or 7 times before they figure out it's been going to downloads. And then they won't use the right one to rename. They'll end up putting a 2 there or putting a 2 here, but none of this stuff should be in the file name. Like that extra parenthesis, those are called parentheses, by the way. I'm an HTML coder. I don't call those brackets. That's a mistake that Canadian high school teachers have forever done. These are brackets. These square things, those are brackets, okay? These are parentheses, but none of that crap should be in your file name. The only reason it would be is because you're saving too many versions of it. So you need one version of the file, and you change the 1 to a 2. If you have other versions in there, get rid of them. You don't want to end up saving the wrong version and then submitting that and wasting one of your attempts and getting a 0 because there was nothing done in it. I see students do that all the time. They save a file, and then they move it to the desktop, but they had a copy and downloads, and they both have the correct name, and then they submit the wrong one. Just have one file, and that's the file you will open up and work on and do exactly what the instructions say to do to it. So now that I have that one file, I'm going to open it, and again, notice how I see the .xlsx. You may be on a computer where the settings in your Mac OS or in Windows don't show the extension. That doesn't mean it's not there. You will never type it in. If you do that, what you're doing is creating a file name that goes, _2.xlsx.xlsx. And then people sit there forever trying to figure out what's wrong with the name. But when you go to submit in SAM, it will always tell you what the name's supposed to be right here. And you should never have to add that .xlsx. This is the part you need to have. If anything in there doesn't match, you just fix it. This big red message will come up if your file name is incorrect. I don't need to demo that. I'm going to actually, on purpose, demo a mistake in there to show you how to fix it at the end. But yeah, so that's the process. And of course, here you need to click Enable Editing as well. And you'll start on a single spreadsheet, a worksheet that has your name and the name of the case, and it talks about where it came from in the book. And it's got the Cengage logo, and that's it. You never mess with this. You always just check to make sure your name's in there. Make sure you're not accidentally in your buddy's account, and because that's not going to work. It just won't accept the file. It has to come from your account. And then you go to the instructions and do what it says. Sometimes you're going to do stuff before you even leave the documentation sheet. Sometimes you don't. So the instructions here begin by saying, you're this person doing this at this place. There's always a scenario, which makes it kind of real world applicable. So you're Diego Espinosa, and you're a sales manager. Oh, no, you're not that. You're Diego's assistant, actually. Diego Espinosa is a sales manager at Mentor Bank and Trust and uses Excel to maintain data about the bank's branches. He asks you, as his financial assistant, to finalize the branch managers and loan income worksheets for the week. Go to the branch manager's worksheet. So begin by going there. So Alt-Tab. I'm going to teach you a neat keyboard shortcut now. You might not be lucky enough to have 2 monitors. If you have 2 monitors, this would be a great time to work with 2 monitors, okay? So by using this keyboard shortcut, Alt-Tab, I can choose whatever. I have a lot of windows open right now, as you can see. But if you're in this window and you want to be back in the Word file to look at the instructions, and you go to that window, then those are the last 2 windows you were in, and you can keep Alt-Tabbing back and forth, which on a Mac, by the way, would be Command-Tab. Why did that pop up there like that? So that's how you kind of move around back and forth in the instructions. So the instructions say, why does it keep doing that? And this one, and then I want that minimized. there, there. There, now I've got those two in front. So the instructions say go to the branch manager's worksheet. I go back to Excel. I go branch manager's worksheet. Go back here. It says cut the contents of D1 to D3 and paste into A1 to A3. So as your very first step on your very first case, it's cut and paste, literally. But you're doing more than one cell, and we didn't really talk about that in our initial overview, our intro to Excel, but it's quite simple, and we're going to do it together. So now I show you the exact step in here, and you can pause me, you can slow me down, you can rewatch it. What you're going to do is click your mouse into D1. That's the first cell you want, and they want D1 to D3, which is a range. We're going to talk about ranges now. In here, we didn't talk about that in the intro, but you're going to highlight. You don't have to type it in, you just highlight it. Click inside the cell. Click down to the next two, let go. From here, cut and paste is what on the keyboard shortcuts? You can right-click, cut and paste. You can right-click, cut, and then go over there and paste it. Or you could use your keyboard shortcuts, which is R, Control-X. Go click in A1. Now, if you copy or cut from a series of cells, all you have to do is click in the first cell and Control-V, paste. You don't actually have to highlight all three cells. And that's why it's a neat step, just to show you how easy that is to do. And it's moved. Now, there's other ways you could do it. You could actually highlight the cells and click on the border and move it over. And I'm doing this on purpose to show you that if you did it one way or the other, SAM, as much as it is a very particular grading tool, it knows almost everything you're doing. A lot of how it grades with basic content is just, is it in the right place and is it gone from the other place where it was? So they don't actually have the ability to go back and see exactly how you did it. But there are other steps where it's going to be able to know a lot more about how you did it and grade it and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's an easy one that's moved over. And I just showed you a couple different ways to do it. And that's step number one. And that's how it works. We're going to show you every step in every case. And that's step number one completed. Adjust the width of column A to auto fit. So right away from the beginning here, we're showing you how to kind of change some sizing to make things work a little better with where they're sitting and stuff like that. And I showed you with the spillover when we did the intro to Excel, you can type stuff into Excel, but as soon as you add stuff to the next cell, if it's spilt over, it just types right over it. It's still there, but it's underneath it then. So here we have a situation like that, where you have this in cell A going over into B, and you're not getting the background color either then. So if you just made A bigger by dragging the edge of the column over the way I taught you in the intro lesson, it would fit it in there, but it's asking you to auto fit it. So it's just big enough to fit everything, but not any bigger. So auto fit, you can sit anywhere in A. You can highlight the letter A and highlight the whole column, or sit anywhere in A. And you can go to format, and then there's a whole section on column width under format. Remember, if you have lower monitor resolution, this might be consolidated under the cells menu. And then you'd have to go into format from there. I just want to remind you guys of that. And to see if you're missing that and it's consolidated, you can always look at the bottom section of those menu items. So we're in here now, and we're sitting somewhere in A. So we're just going to go to format, not column width specifically, but auto fit. And the other way to do that, it undid my auto fit because I already made it bigger, is to simply click. Oh no, I see why it did that. It did that because the cell I was sitting in had a smaller width of text. So I'm glad that happened actually, because I always say sit anywhere. Anytime you're setting a specific width, sit anywhere in there and just set the width and it'll set it. If you're auto fitting, you typically would want to sit in the cell that has the widest amount of stuff. And I didn't. I sat there, so it auto fit what was in there. So you do want to sit in either A1 or you highlight the letter A and it will automatically auto fit to the largest thing if you highlight the whole column. That's the habit I'm in, is always highlighting the whole column. The other way to do it, I'm going to undo that by hitting Control-Z, is simply to go to the edge of the column. Doesn't matter where you are, you can go right to the edge of column A, double click it, and that's auto-fitting too. So I double clicked it, so I don't even have to go into the menu to do that. And that's step number 2. Moving on to step 3. In cell A3, enter text. So I showed you how to enter text in the intro video, in the introduction of this video, actually, week of March 19th. So go to A18. Is it A18? A3, sorry, it's right here. Week of March 19th. Week of March 19th, comma, space, 2029, enter. Always hit enter when you're done. And you're going to get that right. There's no issues in there. However, if you added like an extra space in there, if you left the space out of there, if you had an 8 here instead of a 9, Sam will mark that wrong. So Sam, it's either 100% right or it's wrong. If you're getting graded by a computer. So my suggestion to you right from the beginning is if you have anything more than a couple words, don't type it in, because you're going to type a whole paragraph in an email and have no typos. But if you're typing out 3 or 4 words, you're more likely to have typos than typing a whole page. You're just not in the groove, right? You're choppy. So what I would do is I would copy and paste items like that. Okay, so I would go in here and copy out of Word. And you got to be careful when you're doing this copy thing. And I'll keep teaching you this throughout but after the first few weeks, I do it a little bit quicker. It's very easy to always accidentally pick up that extra space. And when you paste it, you can just get rid of it. Or you can just try with your mouse to not grab it. And then you right-click copy. And then you go over here to Excel. Now, a few different things are going to happen. If you sit right in the cell and just paste, it brings in the formatting from the Word file instead of just using the formatting in the Excel file. Now, if a SAM case hasn't asked you to format it a certain way, it's probably only going to check the content of the cell. It'll just go in the formula bar and check that each of those letters are there and there are no extra spaces or typos. Just from the standpoint of being consistent with your formatting, I would never do that. I would just, as soon as you paste it, this little box comes up that gives you the option to match the formatting of the destination where you pasted it, which would be the Excel file. And if you just click that, it formats like the Excel file. There's even a couple more ways to avoid the formatting coming through. When you're pasting, so I'm going to go back out of here so you can see it's empty. Instead of just sitting on the cell and pasting, if you activate the cell and paste in it, in the activated cell, it doesn't take any formatting from where it came from. And you can do the same thing. I'm going to remove that again, undo, if you paste directly into the formula bar. And that's another way. So there's 3 different ways to not take the formatting in. It's just sloppy to have the formatting in there, even though it wouldn't mark it wrong. So just try and do that correctly. And I'm teaching you, even the people that have used Excel a bunch, I bet I just taught you stuff you guys never knew, right? Even though you use it like every day at work, because it's a matter of really, really using it like heavily and getting into it for a lot of stuff. So next step, you're changing the width of column B and you're actually setting an exact width. So some of these steps are really easy. So I'm not going to take a lot of time to explain them. It's literally just sitting anywhere in the column or highlighting the letter B and then going to format from the format menu, column width. So I'm not in B right now. So I'm going to stick my mouse in B, click on B1, format column width, type 15, hit enter. Done. You can see it got smaller. That's step 4. If you need to see that again, you just rewind and watch it again. You slow me down, you speed me up, you do whatever you want. Enter the values in table 1 into D15, 16, and 17. So now, we already kind of practiced typing in text and typing in numbers. We don't really need to type these in. It's just encouraging the likelihood of typos. And when you copy from a Word table, just like if you copy from Excel 3 cells, and you sit in the first cell, it'll paste it into 3 cells. So I'm just going to right-click copy. I'm going to highlight those 3. I actually copied on my keyboard here. Right-click copy. And I'm going to go sit in the first cell it said to paste into, which is D15. And I'm going to Control V, which is paste. And it's going to put them in all 3 cells. Right away, I'm looking at that going, man, that doesn't look right. And again, Sam has not requested any specific formatting here, so it would likely mark this correct. But I think it's a best practice just not to bring that over that way. Now this, you can't activate the cell and paste in 3 things at once. It would then try and paste them all into the same cell. nor can you put it in the formula bar. So you can't use those two tricks. So you have to either, there's actually 4 ways to do it. I think I only showed you 3 ways last time. Before you paste, you can right click and you can match destination formatting before you paste it in. But if you forget to do that, you can always paste it in like we did in step 1 when I taught you the first way, and then match destination formatting here. It's funny in Excel, like there's like sometimes 4 or 5 ways to do things. And that step is now done. Step number 6. This is a cool step, and I love that this is coming up in the very first case, because people hear things like this that have used Excel for a long time, like flash fill. What the heck? I don't know what that is. And I reacted probably the same way when I first heard about it a few years ago. And then I tried it once and I was like, wow, that's like super easy. And that's half the battle in Excel. Like we're in week 1 right now. We're not learning difficult stuff. There's nothing difficult with the step we're about to do. It's literally just a matter of knowing that you can actually find this tool and use it to do this. That's 90% of the stuff you do in Excel isn't overly complicated calculations and super heavy statistics and stuff like that. It's just knowing that the tool's there to use. And there's so much stuff. We're just scratching the surface in a course like this. So here's a situation where you have a bunch of names in these rows in the table, and you got this guy's email address. And if you type it right in, it's cool too. It'll automatically make the hyperlink. Just type it in. Don't copy and paste this one. Type it right in. I think that flash fill would still work if you copy and pasted it and didn't have the formatting, but if you type it in, it's just easy. We can try both ways actually. Let's type it in. So Malik.Watson at, I think it's Cengage.com. Then when you hit enter, you'll see a neat thing that Microsoft Word does that too. Same with PowerPoint. It automatically makes a hyperlink when you have an email address or a web address. But that's not why this next thing works. This next thing works because it looks at what you have in this cell and analyzes the fact, there's a little bit AI going on here, right? It analyzes the fact that this is just this guy's name with a period in between the first and last at Cengage.com. And it assumes all the rest of the emails will be the same. So sitting on that cell, you don't have to highlight down into the other ones. That's how cool flash fill is. Just sit on that cell. Don't click on the email or it'll open up your email server thing, whatever your default email is. Go to fill. So this will be here, this little button here. And if you don't see that, it's consolidated under the editing menu because your monitor's smaller. And now it actually shows the word fill. Cool. So fill is that little down icon, and you can fill to the right, up, down. It'll fill series. So if you have like January, it'll fill February, March, April. It's really cool the way it does that automatically. You can also use the fill handle to do that. But flash fill, by sitting on that one, it will know that you're filling down. It just figures it out. Just sit on there and just hit flash fill. Like how cool is that? It just took all their names and made the email addresses. And if you can't, I don't know why, in my first lecture, a few students, they went in here and they didn't see flash fill there. I think it was there. They just used the search box instead, which is another way. If you're not sure where something is in the menu, remember how I said that's half the battle is knowing where it is and where to find it? Since Excel put the search box in, which I think has been since, well, every version of 365, you can just search for it here. See? Flash fill. There it is. Now, I am going to undo that. And I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to copy and paste it instead, which will not automatically generate the hyperlink. And I'm going to show you that it shouldn't make any difference. So I'll paste it in there. I don't like that formatting crap, so I'm going to paste without match destination for. Oh, and it does make the thing anyway. Let's say we don't want it to. No, it makes it no matter what we do. It automatically makes the hyperlink. Okay, let's paste it in there without changing the destination formatting. So it's not a hyperlink. And let's try flash fill again. And it still works. It still works without it being a hyperlinked email. It just makes the same formatting as the other ones. Now, once again, Sam would not mark that wrong because it doesn't specify anything about the formatting here. Usually if it wants the formatting to be the same, it'll say that. But I liked this way just because it's cleaner. It looks, but there I clicked on it by accident there. And then flash fill down. So you don't have to keep doing this over and over again. I'll do a lot of stuff in my videos where I'm demonstrating to you different ways to do things. Once you get the step done once, you can leave it and just watch my other demonstrations. I don't need to send an email right now. Control S, save your file. It's about time you did a save. And let's move on to the next step. Change the width of column E to 35. Sit anywhere in E. It doesn't matter where you're sitting, or highlight the letter E. Format, column width, type 35, hit enter. Let's go right to the next step. Enter the word total in B18. You're just identifying what's going to be there, the calculations you're about to make. So go to B18, enter the word total, spelled correctly. Some of these steps are pretty easy. Now we're going to do a sum function. So I'm going to take a little bit of time here just to explain what the point of all this is when you start to get into Excel and the efficiencies it creates. So the one thing I didn't get into in my intro lesson was how to do calculations in Excel, because I prefer to do it in the context of learning the sum function. So just so you know, if you went into a cell and started with an equal sign, you can then follow that by any math problem, like a calculation, and it will just calculate it. Like 2 plus 2. Hit enter, and you get the answer 4, and then in the formula bar, you see the calculation. So you see the math there and the answer there. So you can do all kinds of algebra and put all kinds of numbers into different places and do all these calculations in Excel. But the idea is not that you add up, for example, let's add up these two numbers above here, 785, 490, whatever. So let's add up 490,725 plus 785,250. You don't need the formatting when you're typing it out. And that comes to 1,275,975. Now, wouldn't it be easier and much safer not to have typos? And that's the idea from Excel. If you didn't have to type the numbers out again. Excel is so brilliant because you never have to retype the numbers. What you do is you reference the cell. So this cell that we learned in the intro lesson, that you follow the column letter and the number, and you get to this like finding something on the map. These two cells, D16 plus D17, same exact number, and it formatted for you because it carried the formatting in from the cells you referenced. So that's the idea behind Excel, is that you reference the cells so you never have to change them. Now, if you have a step like they're asking you to complete here, where they want you to add up all these numbers, you're obviously not going to go like this. 52, 211, plus 55, 668, plus 48. Look at how long this is taking, 672, and on and on and on, and you get the total eventually. You're way smarter than that because you know these numbers are in Excel, so you can go, well, I can do that. I can go C6 plus C7 plus C8, but it's still going to take forever because you're adding up all these things, and this is where you learn how to use a range. So what you want to do is you want to add up C6 all the way to C17, but you don't want to have to type out everything in between it. So that would be C6 colon C17. But just by putting it in there isn't going to add them all up. Excel's not going to know what you want to do. It's going to be like, okay, they want to go from here to here. And then what it's going to do is just regurgitate those cells all the way down for the next 16 rows. That's not what you're trying to do. You have to give Excel an instruction as to what you're going to do with that range. So I'm going to Control Z and undo that. So this is where functions come in. And the most commonly used function is sum. So just like anything after the equal sign can be math and calculated. In fact, it can just point to a cell. You can just make a cell show up by just going equals C6, and then it'll just put in that cell what's in C6. You want to add all these up. So you want to use the function called sum. And then you want to use parentheses. Those are not brackets, those are parentheses. You can tell your Canadian high school teachers that they don't know the meaning or the definition of these characters on a standard keyboard because somebody taught them the wrong way too. I'm only saying this because I coded HTML for a long time, and these are not the same things, and they are both in HTML and CSS very frequently. So moving on here, inside the parentheses, we can stick our mouse right back in there. We're going to put that range, and we don't even have to type it out. If you want the range to show up, highlight from the first one to the last one, and it types it out for you, C6:C17. And watch what happens when we hit enter. We hit enter, and holy crap, that was super fast. But it's even faster because learning to type the sum function out, and there's some really common go-to functions like sum. There's average, which is the word average spelled out, and you start your parenthesis and you can highlight the cells. You don't actually have to even close the parenthesis. You can just hit enter when you're doing simple functions like that. There's min, there's max, and even as you start typing them out, watch what happens when I type AV. It's going to be one of the options. It's right there. I can just double click it and then grab it. Like Excel makes everything so easy for you, to the point where sum is used so often, and I'm going to delete that, that it's an automatic button on the home tab. We still haven't left the home tab yet. There's this little sideways looking M thing. That's auto sum. And underneath auto sum, you have auto average, count, min, and max. Count's a common number too. Count A is just counting every cell with anything in it. So what you're going to do, sitting in the same place, is you're simply going to click that button. You don't have to worry about it choosing average, min, or max or whatever, because AutoSum's the one right on the top. And then it will automatically pick up what you're wanting to pick up there. And all you got to do is hit enter, and it's done. So Excel's very smart like that. Now, sometimes it might not work that well if you're sitting here and there's a couple cells in between, but all you got to do is re-highlight the range to fix it. Right? And you'll get more and more comfortable with this stuff as you use it more frequently. And then the next step, or the second part of that step, explains to copy the formula to D18 because it wants the total deposits there. So it's just a single copy. It's actually quite simple. You can do it using the fill handle. You can drag it over, and see how cool that is? You're copying what's in this cell to that cell, but it automatically knows, look at the formula bar, to change it from C to D. That's the brilliance of Excel. And you can also do it Control-C and Control-V right in there. You could even do something, I didn't even know about this till a few years ago. I'd been using Excel forever, and a student showed me this. If you're going to do an AutoSum here and an AutoSum here, and they're both in the same row and everything above it is in the same position, you can highlight those two cells and click AutoSum, and boom, they're both done immediately. And Sam's not going to know if you didn't copy it over. These are things that it's just checking. Sam will know a lot, but as long as you have the right thing in the formula bar, usually you're good. Formatting's a little more sensitive. It's got to be very precise. We do a formatting case next week. And that was step 9. Diego also wants to complete the summary statistics at the bottom of the worksheet, so enter the text average deposit in cell A22 to identify what's already in B22. And if you look here and sit on it and look, that's an average. See? So they already put an average in there for you. And don't mess with the stuff Sam put in there. Only do what Sam says to do in their instructions. So put average deposit and hit enter. Notice that I skipped the letter there. Now I'm going to do that on purpose, just so I get something wrong at the end of this case so I can show you how to fix it. So we're going to leave that like that. If you guys aren't listening to the audio and just watching me work, hopefully you noticed I had a spelling error there. But I'm doing that on purpose. Next step, use count. So count A is a function that will just count everything that's in a cell and then tell you how many cells have stuff in them. And you're going to go A6. So this works literally the same as sum, but it's not one of the auto sums. So regular count is there. I think that, yeah, but that's not the same as count A. So count A, and you can always go to formulas and see what they do. Like if you go under, I think that's statistical. Count. So count counts the number of cells in a range that contain numbers. Count A counts the number of cells in a range that contain anything. Right? So it could be text or numbers. It's not just text. And they, in particular, in this situation, they wanted you to use count A because you have a bunch of cells with text in them, not actual numerical data. So, but I'm explaining, see, this is what I mean by the fact that the teachers teach you what's in these chapters by going through the steps with you. So that's the difference between count and count A. No, count A is not one of the go-to sum functions under AutoSum, but you've already noticed that without going into the formulas tab and trying to find these, if Sam asks you for a certain function, just start typing it out, right? And if you just if you go equals count, it's going to be it's the second option right there, and you can just double click it and then just highlight your range right there. Okay, so it doesn't auto sum it like it did when you chose count, so you have to pick it up. Big deal. You don't even have to close the parenthesis. It'll know to close it when you hit enter. And count A, highlighting those cells, which is A6 to A17, should give you 12. Did we put that in the right cell? I don't think we did. And this happens once in a while, and I'm not going to go back in the video and remove this. So just pay attention to what I'm doing. If I do something like that, I'm just going to immediately delete it. Oops, I should have put that right here. And I think the reason they set up that step is so that you could see you don't have to be sitting right under the range to make this you just sit after the first parenthesis and highlight the same range. Doesn't matter if you're under it or not. Hit enter and it's done. So we did do it correctly the first time. It just wasn't in the right cell. We need to be in B20 as per the instructions. Borders. Borders are super easy, and most of the time, the borders you want to use, there will be an automatic option for them. And there is here. And this is for this collection of cells. So A20 to B22. They want you to highlight those cells because that's how you add the borders. And then you go here and you pick the automatic border option that's already set. You don't go down here and get into more borders, although that you can do anything you want once you get into there. You just pick outside borders. So highlight the cells, click outside borders, it's done. When you click off it, you can see the borders are there. So that's an easy one. We're starting to get into some easy steps here that are more based on stuff you might do in like Word, for example. Switch to the next worksheet. We're finally leaving this worksheet. Another good time to save your file. So I just hit Control S. You can also save up here and go to this worksheet. First thing we're going to do here is change the page layout to landscape. So page layout, go figure, orientation, landscape. I'm picking up the pace a little bit here because we've been working for a while. You guys are starting to get comfortable. If I'm going too fast, just pause me. You can pause me, you can rewind me, you can speed me up, you can slow me down anytime you want. Change the zoom level to 130%. So this is a good, I like this step because it's good to know on a SAM case, you can change the zoom. If SAM hasn't specified where the zoom is supposed to be, you can move it to wherever you want and save the file and submit it, and it won't affect your mark. If SAM says it wants zoom at 130%, go down here, use the plus button. It's easier than using the slider sometimes. It just goes 10 at a time. Bring it up to 130 and leave it. And then you'll get marked correct. In cell A2, edit the text. So you have text that's already in here, but they want more at the end of it. And you can still copy and paste. You know, you can go grab. You need the rest of the words of. You need March 19th, 2029. Make sure you don't pick up extra spaces. Copy. Double click in the cell or click in the formula bar. Add a space. Paste. Enter. Done. Not all the steps are this easy. We'll move on. So here's a good one. They want you to change B5 to F5 to 11 size font, 11 point, and A10. Now, they don't say they want you to do this at the same time. And you're going to get it right whether you do it at the same time or separately. But if you highlight this and you go to the home tab, you change to 11. It'd be faster if you could also have highlighted this at the same time. Well, you don't need that one. Highlighted A10 at the same time. So if you pick up one or the other ranges and then hold down the control key, I'm holding down the control key right now, it allows you to pick up the next chunk of cells and then have both highlighted at the same time. You can also, as an alternative option, you can put, like, what was it, B5 to F5, you can put the range. So B5 colon F5 comma A10, enter. That's another good use of the name box. You can go enter and do it like that. And then once they're all highlighted, you can change it to 11 and hit enter. And again, you can do them both separately, the ranges, and you would get that answer correct. Diego wants to do sum functions again. enter a formula without, oh, no. This is, okay, this is a good step because it's telling you to enter a formula without using a function where you're just taking one thing minus another. You're just trying to figure out income, so you're taking expenses off, right? Whenever they give you steps like this, you have to pay attention and be really careful not to necessarily put it in the same exact order it is in the step. They're not telling you B7 minus B6. They're telling you to take B7 from B6. So you go into B8 and you go equals B6 minus B7. And you hit enter and that's it. And then you're going to copy it over. Now, if I don't show students this, I would say about half my students that took Excel in high school will do this. Equals sum, in parentheses, B6 minus B7. And then the number will actually be correct because all sum is saying is sum up what's in here and it just puts the number in there. That is absolute nonsense, okay? You do not need a sum function when you're using Excel to take one number minus another with cell references. You just literally take the one number and subtract the other. So only that will be marked correct because that is all they need. And I love that Sam has now updated their instructions. These are all brand new cases. They were just published literally in August of 25. They say, do not use a function. You don't need to, because so many high school teachers have taught students, oh yeah, if you need to do basic math, just use the sum function and stick it in the parentheses, or they would say brackets. Why would you do extra work when you don't need to? There's no point. The sum function is unnecessary, and Sam will mark it wrong if you use it. So this is the way you need it done. Once you do that simple calculation, you drag it over only to E. Now, if you did drag it all the way to F, eventually when you put these two numbers in, the addition of, or the subtraction of these two numbers will equate to the same as adding up these four across that row. But that's not what Sam said to do. Sam said only drag it to E8. And then here you're going to do auto sums in these three cells. And yes, you could click on one, auto sum, and enter, and then copy it down. But I already showed you the cool trick where if you know they're all identical auto sums, highlight all three cells at once, hit the auto sum button, done. And you can always, I kind of remiss that I didn't bring this up sooner. As you're doing all these steps, there are graphics. What? Okay, we're still going. Sorry. I thought it was good. Cool. A little bit of a breather there. As you're doing all these steps, there are graphics down below the completed steps, the complete list of steps that show you the numbers you should have. Now, you can't just type the numbers in. They've got to be the right formulas, but you can at least go and check to make sure your calculations are correct, and everything's looking good so far. Every case will have this, including the cases on the test. And it even shows you, the last step was just to make an extra worksheet, and it's blank, so it even shows you that. And we're almost done here. So save your file. Once again, go back to Excel, Control S, or hit the Save button. Whatever's easier for you. And we are on to step number 19. Wrap text for A10 to fit the cell contents within the cell border. So it doesn't want it spilling over to the right. So sit on A10. This is your wrap text button. There, right there. It's got the little kind of curved down below arrow with ABC. Click that. You'll notice right away it's wrapped down below it. So now you're going to auto fit, which is the next step. And that was steps 19 and 20. Okay? Wrap text and auto fit. So these are very simple tools, just one clickers, right? In cell B11, enter March 19th, 2029. Now you're going to notice if you have a computer you bought in Canada that does not have English United States settings, when you go 3/19/29, it may automatically on your Mac or PC change to dashes or dates. It might not even recognize it as a date. So I believe mine did. I think if I typed March 19th, 2029. Oh, that's unusual. Oh, wow, that's weird. I put it in the wrong cell. That's why it's doing that. So put it in the right cell. 319, 2029. There, and it still sees that as a number. In B11. If I type out March 19th, 2029, because it's pre-formatted as a number. No, so there's the date. That's probably what you should do to get that answer correct, because I did this in a lab already, and the lab formatting actually matched this precisely. But on my computer, because I've chosen different date formatting, even though it is in English United States, I've just changed the settings around. You notice how it didn't shift all the way to the right automatically. You need it to do that so you know it recognizes it as a date. I know it says date there now, but that's because I just typed the date in there previously. So the best way to get this correct, to make sure, because we all have different formatting on our computers, just type March 19th, comma, 2029, hit enter. And then even though this has shifted the numbers around on my computer for the answer, that will be correct. Okay, save your file again. You're almost done. Since you just calculated the income and totals, you no longer need the stuff that's in D11. Get rid of it. Delete it. So sit on D11 and hit delete. That was probably the easiest step on the case. I like that one. And then finally, in preparation for some more data, you want to add a worksheet called employees. Be careful with steps like this. If you spell employees wrong, it will mark that step wrong. Okay, now you get an opportunity to fix that. I'm going to make that one wrong too. So I'm going to have 2 typos when I go. So I'm going to do the new sheet button, right click, rename, employees with an S. I'm going to stare at that for a while and make sure it's correct. You can cut and paste right into there too. And that was the final step. So now I'm ready to turn this back in. If 90 minutes have not passed, when I go back to the SAM screen, it should still be active. You might need to refresh. If you've gone over an hour and a half, you'll need to refresh to get it to accept it. I don't need to do that. But I'm not just going to go here and upload it immediately. I haven't even closed it yet. So 2 of my biggest rules, number 1, always be saving. Number 2, always be closing. So I haven't saved since I did those last 2 steps, but if I go to close the file, it will automatically prompt me to save it. So my changes are saved no matter what. So I would say always close it. But you still want to be saving throughout. You never know, your computer might die or something and you don't want to lose your work. So I'm going to save again as I've closed it. And now I know with the file closed, that one's ready to go. So I can drag and drop it in there, right, from downloads. Or I can go and click on the upload box and go to downloads and put it in. I'll just drag and drop it. It's just as easy. If it is the correct name, it will say saved files here. It won't have a big red message. If you have a bad file name, just fix it. It's not that big of a deal. Just look at the file name it's supposed to be right here and fix it. It'll tell you what the file name is that you try to submit, and you'll see where it's wrong. My file name is correct, so I'm going to hit submit. Immediately, I mean like seconds later, split seconds, you get your mark. This grade summary report, I'm going to click on that and download it, just like I downloaded the instruction and the case file. And I'm going to put it into downloads, and I'm going to open that up. Now, I've taken a little bit of extra time on this one. I mean, this is the first case, so I wanted to make sure you guys understood the process, but this is pretty quick. Like if you go through the video or you come to your class and do it in lab, it's quick. So I'm going to open this up, and if there are any mistakes, I'm going to go back and reopen the original file. You don't make the changes in the report file. And your professors will automatically always take the highest grade and put it into FOL, assuming you submitted it on time. Okay, so once this opens, we're going to see how we did. We already know we don't have 100 because I deliberately made 2 mistakes. And that date was correct, by the way. I knew it would be. The date, you just always type in the long date if you even have to question the date format, because the date format will never match precisely. And these are why it's better to have the profs teach you these cases, because the book probably wouldn't even mention that, right? So I have incorrect. Oh, neat. It didn't mark that other one incorrect. That's weird. Oh, I actually spelled it right. I was going to spell it wrong, and then I didn't. That's funny. I said I was going to do that wrong, but I ended up doing it correctly. That's why it's not marked incorrect. If I would have just typed employee without an S, it would have marked that step wrong. So the only thing I got wrong was the one I originally planned to get wrong, which is average deposit. And if I go to that step, there's a little, like, they call them, if I enable editing, they call these comments. We're going to learn those in a later case. There's a little comment there, and if you sit over it, it'll actually tell you what it's supposed to be, but you don't fix it in the report. So this is the report file. So I don't even need to leave this open. It's only one mistake. I know what it is. I can close the file. If you have two monitors, you want to Alt-Tab back and forth. If you've got a bunch of mistakes and fix them all, that's the way to do it. But I only have the one, so I can just close the file, reopen the other one. You can obviously have both open at the same time. And I know I'm giving you guys a lot of information at once. Remember, too, you can always look at the scripts on these YouTube videos. I might show you that at the beginning of week 2. So the file's open. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to add the E where it was supposed to be. Hit Enter. Close the file. It'll prompt me to save it. Go right back to Sam. This is very fast. Like, it's... Go here. I'm going to not drag and drop it this time. I'll click it and upload it. Oh, so this is another thing too. This is different than the old version of SAM. So if you've already submitted once, it doesn't seem to want to let you submit it again without refreshing the screen. Even if I drag and drop it, it still doesn't work. Okay, it just tries to open the file. See what it tried to do there? So what you're going to do if you need to resubmit, and this is, I should have mentioned this as soon as we got our grade report, refresh the screen. It'll probably take you back to the MindTap screen, or it'll just refresh this one. Yeah, so it refreshes the screen. It says, okay, we're still in the week 1 case. You still have one more attempt. Start new attempt. So you go back in here, start new attempt. I'll make another mistake in week 2. So it's just like basically restarting the case. You could have gone to the main MindTap screen and started week 1 again. And if you don't have any attempts left, it'll just tell you that. You can still always go back to your reports in SAM. And then we go to downloads and we submit it again. And the file name's correct, so I hit submit. And now I go to grade report and I download my second grade report, which will have a different name because it's grade report 2. And then I can go open that up and I should have 100%. And I will, because, you know, I'm awesome. I'm kidding. You guys are awesome. You're all going to get A+ in this course if you follow along with these videos and do what you're supposed to do. 100%. Okay? And your professor, again, will always take the highest mark. Okay? And there's one more thing I was going to leave you with. That is the end of the case. That is typically where I would end the video. I try to make these shorter than longer. The first one's always pretty long. Sorry about that. Let's see what time I'm doing this at, because I need my online students ready to go in week 1. Whatever it is, I'll put it in the week 2 video. You definitely had enough of a presentation for this one. So, oh yeah, that's what it was. So once you're done, you can X out of SAM, and it'll take you back to MindTap. But if you want to see what you did, see, and it'll show you the highest mark in there too. If you want to see what you did and see the mistakes you made or any of the reports you have, you go back to SAM and maximize. It'll take you right to reports for anything you've done, including the quizzes, and you'll be able to get back to them anytime. And for the final time, I think I've said this like 8 times in this video, as long as you submit it on time in accordance with your weekly deadlines, these marks will be transferred to FOL and you'll be good to go. One more thing at the very end here, I promised I would do this at the end, this slide I had that covered these basic rules I have for just avoiding any grade mishaps or wasting time on unnecessary mistakes. Number 1, always hit enter. When you're putting the stuff in the cell, formula-based text, whatever it is, don't arrow down or tab over, just hit enter. Number 2, save your file throughout. I know it's cool that at the very end, if you close it, it automatically saves it. So if you forgot to save the whole time, you're going to get it saved anyway, but save it throughout anyway. And then at the end, close it. Always be closing. And then finally, don't forget to use Alt-Tab. Okay, so Alt-Tab's a great tool if you don't have 2 monitors to save you a lot of time going back and forth between the instructions and the Excel case file itself. So at the end of the day, this course, just by doing all this work, on your computer weekly, you're not going to have a lot of homework. The work is not going to fill the full amount of time that a 3-hour course would take every week. I mean, not that every course is lectured for 3 hours anyway. Most are that are 3 hours, but and some weeks will take even longer. But by doing this work, you're just going to get better at using computers as well. It's a good thing all around. So that is officially it for week 1, and we will see you in week 2.